We're still waiting on one more judge, right? Can everyone hear me, at least?
What happened?
Jay, what have you done with the $7 you've stolen from me?
It was a fair bet. You were the one who's making fun of me about it.
Dude, it's actually so how I don't understand, dude. Did you have like insider information?
No, I took the odds. It worked.
Jay, would you mind reading that out loud?
I guess while we wait for the last judge, does everyone want to put their emails in the chat so I can get an email chain going?
Jay, can you make an email chain, please?
No.
Actually, yeah.
I'm not making no. Okay, if you want me to make the email chain, there's no evidence being sent out this round. I've made it every single round of prelims and elims.
Wait, do we even need to send email chains? Because we know like all the evidence is there. So
In case you just want to call for that at the end of the round, I'll probably send speech docs in there. So like,
Yeah.
might as well have it going. No, all the emails are in the chat for you.
That's unfortunate. It looks like my email actually just went down. So.
Chris, I've gotten like 4 texts now saying I'm not marked present. Do you know like why that is? Because I've been here for like 20 minutes. Hello? Okay, and I can turn my camera on if that's what's needed. Hello?
Hello.
If I get another one, I'm gonna be very disappointed.
I mean, you already have to wake up first thing in the morning, so can't really get worse.
Julia, are you also getting these texts or is it just me?
I am not getting these.
Okay.
Texts.
Unfortunate.
I'm sorry, I don't.
All good. Yeah, I just got another one. Chris, if you're there, you can mark me as present. That would be great. I'll put in the chat too.
Jay, I'm not picking up. All right, they said they're replacing the last judge, but I don't know why they thought I wasn't here. I'm unlucky, but yeah, they said they're replacing the last judge.
Yeah, what's good, y'all? Just give me like 1 sec. All right, I'm good to go.
Real quick, can you throw your email in the chat for the chain?
Yeah, and we'll just get started on this economics email chain.
Guess we're not getting started then.
Fine, Kunal, Vabov, throw your emails in the chat. I'll do it.
I think you have them, Jay.
I don't like if you want me to like go into like some old docs, I can find them, but be
We're sending them. I think you compromise too much with Kunal. I'm disappointed in your negotiation tactics.
just sent the chain.
What did you send it?
Nothing.
Unmute for a sec. I want that.
Let me know when everyone gets it. Okay, and then real quick, before I read case, I'm just gonna send the case I'm gonna read.
How many extra sheets of paper will I need?
0, just the normal one for case.
Not happy. This is out of character, I will say.
Okay, let me know when everyone gets case.
Got it.
Okay. Everyone good? Okay. We affirm contention 1 is cooperation. Southeast Asia will soon become a battleground. Siddharth 18 explains the drive for resources like oil will lend itself to greater conflicts in the future, and the security environment will destabilize until a regional actor like Japan can restore imbalance. Amending Article 9 catalyzes this process by forcing Japan to make amends with its neighbors to God with 16 rights. Japan will pursue confidence-building measures aimed at reconciliation with neighbors to build regional support for Japan's use of force. Amending Article 9 compels Japan to directly address the history issue and will speed the establishment of a nation multilateral security framework promoting regional security. Absent this catastrophe will erupt, Turkey 10 explains. The Asia Pacific is emerging as the center of the world world, regional disputes can snowball into major conflict, possibly turning nuclear. Contention 2 is sit size. CF20 indicates Japan has voiced increasing interest in joining the Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance. Unfortunately, within 20 writes, Article 9 states intelligence gathering is unconstitutional if another country uses Japanese intelligence to form part of a military force. When Tau 21 concludes, institutional obstacles for Japan to join Five Eyes may become reasons for Japan to push constitutional amendment. A sit size key to checking China's rise. Panda 20 explains, Five Eyes will benefit from Japan's extensive intelligence in East Asia, counter China's attempts to upend the U.S. international order. Moreover, Japan will bring political credibility to an alliance of English-speaking countries, project more multipolar engagement that can curb China's growing dominance. Checking expansion is key, as Tech 14 explains. Hegemon transition periods have historically been the most destabilizing eras. The rise of new global powers necessitates dangerous, primarily great power conflict. As Stanley down 15 concludes, the next great power war would involve nuclear weapons and fighting miscalc. Contention 3 is global conflict. Subpoint A is security guarantees. Security guarantees are becoming unaffordable. TB22 explains, in the widening window of American weakness, defense spending will be close to post-Cold War lows in East Asia, specifically Crabtree 21 finds a sense of disappointment taking hold of middle active U.S. focus. Washington's efforts look insubstantial. Affirming solves as having a wealthy and capable ally, Japan take responsibility for its own defense, allows the U.S. to redirect attention where it's needed most, saving alliances. Panton 10. The threat of America's inability to maintain hegemonic balance in Asia due to economic restraint encourages constitutional reform debates in Tokyo. Japan needs to be able to defend itself independently to reassure the larger region of America's commitment. Reduced confidence spills over globally, a la 21. The Asia Pacific plays an important role in international affairs, home of half the world. The world order will be shaped by the politics of the Asia Pacific, and the U.S. has to play its role in it. Because security guarantees deter adversaries and reassure allies, Barnett 11 confirms the U.S. military resulted in 99% drop in deaths due to war, with Man 14 concluding reduced allied confidence in America's security guarantees cause instability with WMDs. Subpoint B is the Security Council. Mofa 16 explains Japan has been a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council for 11 terms, more than any other state. Unfortunately, Article 9 has brought deeper integration. China 05 explains, for years, Japan has wanted permanency on the Security Council. Article 9's ambiguous language makes it unclear whether Japan will be able to meet its responsibilities as a permanent member. Permanent membership will amplify Japan's influence and efforts to the organization, solving a litany of threats. The DPJ-05 explains, in East Asia, diseases are on the rise. Japan's ODA can help curb the spread of epidemics. The number of nuclear nations has grown. It is the strong leadership of non-nuclear Japan has called urgently to reverse these trends. Japan should also facilitate a climate change prevention regime involving the US, China, and other developing countries, concluding, in order to take leadership in these endeavors, Japan must become a permanent member of the UNSC. Solving any of these threats is key, as Reckon 21 explains, pandemics, climate change, and resurgent nuclear threat making can annihilate the human species. Even without official permanent status, Article 9 revision will make Japan's voice far louder, achieving the same effect. Panton 10 explains. Japan, if it revises Article 9, will increase its diplomatic influence under UN mandates, will mark Japan as a new global leader. Subpoint C is the Middle East. Japan's influence in the Middle East has been curtailed by Article 9, Rinhold 02. Japan could play a major strategic role in the Middle East. However, Japanese foreign policy has been severely constrained by its peace constitution. In the Middle East, Japan can only choose policy options dictated by the US. Fortunately, AF solves Ho 18. As Japan increases its military influence, it will seek to find new partners in the Middle East. This brings peace to the region. As Salhul 20 explains, Japan has many cultural and historic soft power assets, providing a popular support among rival parties in the region, including Iran and Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE. Japan is uniquely poised to play a mediating role between regional adversaries, the drivers of instability. This is key now, as Pena 22 explains, the Middle East is a growing nucleus of raging conflicts as the perpetual antagonism between Israel, Arab states, and Iran builds. Preventing conflict is imperative, as Sterling 11 writes. Any Middle East war will be a case of use your WMDs or lose them to enemy strikes. Usage will result in the spread of radioactive fallout around the world, the Armageddon. Thus we affirm. And was that speed good for everyone? Okay.
I just sent a case doc. I'll start case as soon as y'all get it. It has a rhetoric of what I read, and then it has all the cards at the bottom. All right, everyone got it? Okay. Time starts now. Limerick negates. Contention 1 is foreign aid. Article 9 has turned Japan into the 4th largest aid donor globally. Furuoka 5 argues foreign aid is the pillar of Japanese diplomacy. The government uses economic assistance to influence policies in developing countries due to the fact that all military actions are prohibited by Article 9. Unfortunately, revision provides Japan a militaristic alternative. Hang 19 argues revising Article 9 could undermine decades of international aid flows. Japan may lose incentives to make contributions because they don't need to rely on soft power, but instead shift to hard power. Japanese aid effort is crucial. Addison 15 contends infrastructure investment can lift millions out of poverty. Japan with this experience should continue to make a major contribution. Contention 2 is Star Wars. Currently, Fatten 20 writes, Japan is legally restricted when it comes to space capabilities based on Article 9. Japan's use of space is purely defensive. Affirming flips the script. Tellefson 18 space may provide an avenue for the JSDF and revision of Article 9, which Fatten contextualizes, could materialize through acquisition of strike capabilities in Japan's own ASATs. Weaponization would drag in China, fearing Japan's capabilities. Chang'o 9 contends, a Japan capable of undertaking space responses would arouse the ire of China, concluding a space race would precipitate this risk conflict. Finch 15 writes, space is an offensive dominant domain. Holding targets at risk is far easier than defending them. This could lead to first strike instability, creating pressure for early action, a clear recipe for miscalculation. Indeed, Mitchell 1 continues a buildup and make war inevitable. Any nation subject to space attack would retaliate with nuclear weapons. Contention 3, security guarantees. U.S. alliances stand strong. Me 22 explains overbearing Chinese policies in the Pacific have strengthened U.S. alliances and Russia's threats to Ukraine, and reminding Europeans why Washington is a good ally. Revising Article 9 reverses in 2 ways. Scenario 1 is a blame game. Asian allies perceive constitutional revision as US-led, causing intense backlash. Kaufman 08 explains, Japan's revision of Article 9 viewed against a backdrop of nationalism and have consequences for US relations with Japan's neighbors. If it appears Japan rearmed because of US support, the US could find itself ostracized by vital allies like Korea and Thailand. Scenario 2 is capping confidence. Affirming signals Japan does not trust America's military. Wadsworth 19 explains, offensive capability could be interpreted by neighbors as sign Tokyo is losing confidence in the US. This could start a chain reaction that causes more US allies to develop their own strike capabilities, increasing instability. Reduced confidence spills over globally. Ula 21 explains, the Asia Pacific plays an important role in international affairs, home of half the world. The world order will be shaped by the politics of the Asia Pacific, and the US has to play its role. Confidence is key. Brand 17 explains, US alliances deter aggressors by raising the possibility an attack will mean a fight with the world's most formidable military. Adding, security guarantees allow allies to underbuild their militaries and avert the arms races and security competitions in earlier eras. Overall, Barnett 11 finds the U.S. military resulted in a 99% drop in deaths due to war. Conversely, Man 14 concludes reduced allied confidence in America's security guarantees could cause instability with weapons of mass destruction. Contention 4 is constitutional chaos. Subpoint A is modeling. Article 9 has brought prosperity to East Asia. Tennyson 17 explains, Article 9 is deeply embedded in the East Asian peace, but its key role has never been recognized. Article 9 has hugely contributed to East Asia's pacification by creating a model of national peaceful development. Empirically, Tennyson 14 furthers, in the years 1946 to 79, 80% of people killed in war were in East Asia. Since 1990, 3.5. Japan and Article 9 are the vanguard of that story, concluding, if it were revised, this would destabilize the region. In that event, Celine 13 warns, in a vicious circle, regional tensions fuel each other in East Asia, escalating into a global conflict, devastatingly. Dow 15 concludes, the next great power war involved nuclear weapons, inviting miscalculation. And Star 15 wants, a nuclear war would create an environment too cold and dark to grow food. Humans would vanish forever. Subpoint B is a revision spiral. Despite occasional reinterpretation, CFR 20 explains, for 70 years, Japan's constitution has remained untouched, a symbol of democratic society. Breaking this taboo would create a storm of constitutional amendments. Sterling 20 explains, if Article 9 is revised, all other clauses would also need to be revised because all clauses of the Japanese constitution are interconnected. Japan's right-wing LDP would take advantage, turning Japan authoritarian. Gordon 93 explains, revision of Article 9 would open the door to conservative revision of other parts of the National Charter concerning guarantees of individual rights and the status of the emperor, concluding constitutional revision is the most dramatic concern about democracy in Japan. Specifically, Takahashi 16 confirms, the LDP's draft revised constitution is a model for dictators everywhere. Rights would be restricted while authorities enjoy unfettered power. This would be devastating. Souls 21 explains, Japan plays a central role to rekindle liberal internationalism. The country boasts one of Asia's oldest democracies, concluding, Japan's credentials matter more at a time of widespread democratic backsliding. This breeds existential threats. Diamond 19 confirms, the main threats to security all stem from authoritarianism, whether supporting international terrorism, proliferating WMDs, or threatening neighbors. Thus negates.
Different cross.
Yeah,
Can I get the first question?
for sure.
Let's talk about the Faden evidence you read as uniqueness on your argument about space. Is Article 9 the only barrier it gives for Japan from developing offensive space capabilities?
I don't know if it's the only barrier, but it is the main one, and it is
Does
the one that
does your evidence say that?
I mean, I don't know for sure if it says it's like the only barrier, but I know that for a fact that Article 9 is the only clause that says specifically that Japan cannot defensive offensive capabilities. And if
Yeah, Kunal, sure, it's the only legal clause, but your evidence gives like 4 other reasons as to why Japan will never offensively militarize space.
you can read that in rebuttal, that's fine. Can I take a
It's the
question?
evidence you introduced.
If you want to make that in rebuttal, go ahead. Can I take a question?
Sure.
Let's talk about Five Eyes. Why is Five Eyes intelligence key to countering China's rise?
First, it's like the only intelligence in the East Asian region, and Japan has better knowledge of the region because of where it's located compared
You're not answering my question.
because they know the region better, because they're the only country situated in the region.
No. I didn't ask why Japan's intelligence is key. I mean, why is intelligence key? Like not specifically Japan, just in
Okay.
why is intelligence key?
You know everything China is doing and all of the moves they're trying to make, so you can counteract them. And independent of that,
what would we know with Five Eyes intelligence that we don't know about China right now?
where exactly they're sending their ships, exactly what meetings they're having with exactly what countries, so we can maintain our allies. That's why our
How would
evidence
we-
also. That's
How
why.
would we?
That's
How
why.
would how would we counter China by knowing where their ships are?
Because we could take moves to counteract them. Can I have a question?
I just asked you how would we counter them, and you said we would counter them. How would we counter them? Like knowing where their ships are.
In our own
what
ships
moves-
to say, China, you can't do that. Can I have a
Like
question?
if we already have our own ships.
No,
in the
you've had like
sea-
5 follow-ups. Can I have a question?
Okay, you can take a question. Yeah.
Let's talk about your argument about revision spiral. You say all of the clauses are interconnected, right?
Yeah.
Can you give me an example of just like 2 clauses that are reliant on each other?
Not really. I'm not a Japanese legal scholar.
Can you explain how they're interconnected at all?
Yeah, because like if one clause has to do with the military and another clause has to do with the military, they are by definition interconnected because they both have to do with the military. Vaibhav is telling me the 14th and first clause.
Just like in the United States Constitution, the 14th and the first are interconnected. Similar to the Japanese Constitution, a lot of them are interconnected. So you have
That's not Japan's constitution. That's America's.
I mean, he's just giving an example. Can I take a question really quickly?
Sure, it's not
Okay,
Japan's.
we have ships in the US has ships in the South China Sea, yes?
Not the East China Sea.
Okay, like
That's where Japan's intel is key. And we also say the United States doesn't have enough ships in the South China Sea, that we need Japanese stuff.
okay,
That's
that's cross.
we're gonna.
Okay, what's up?
We're not running proper.
Yeah, no. I'll send a doc. It'll be all the rhetoric. It's off of cut cards though, so I can send cards afterwards. So I'll start once you'll get the doc. Yeah, is everyone good? Yeah, let me know when you get that doc.
Out of curiosity, since when is this prep out cooking?
No comment. Okay, let me know when you get it.
I got it.
Okay. Everyone got it? Okay, I think all the judges are good too. So let's start time on my first word. On age, foreign aid is bad for wars. First, authoritarianism. Swanson 15 explained that governments depend on the people for tax. Government that get money from aid tend to be more unequal, less developed, and more impoverished. Lynch 14 continues that aid to reinforce the resources available to corrupt the least. Money is not distributed for and sent use on dishonest civil servants. Second is predatory loans. Malaki 18 explains that foreign aid destroys countries to do debt. Rich nations receive more interest payments than they give in aid. Third is populism. Carbon or 10 explains that to populists it's better to devote tax money to national priorities rather than wasting money on trying to provide aid to distant lands. Populism knows such arguments should also control the internal link to revisions filed on their C4. On fourth is civil war. Sponsors 15 explains that civil war increases foreign aid increases civil war since there's a lucrative project worth fighting for, like in Rwanda, Somalia, and Thailand, which would fail on killing millions, 9/12 rights, from flood to refugees, inventing the spread of infectious diseases. All the trends applied to Japan recipients prove as Law 18 explains that an increase of 1% of foreign aid led to economic growth decrease of 0.18% in Asian countries. On the impact on infrastructure, one, there's no context on where it goes. Two, there's no warrant on why Addison says that infrastructure increases economic growth. And third, you can turn it because infrastructure only goes to rich areas with high rates of return to comparatively increase inequality and decrease of growth on space. First, it's not unique. Space militarization by other countries is inevitable. David Tony, when it explains for the U.S., Russia, and China are already the path on the path to war in space and as technology advances, and their own Chang evidence as American spark provocations now. Fortunately, F solves in 2 ways. First is norm setting. Cavalry 20 explains that Japan's space power encompasses a government framework involving a significant number of countries can shape North's responsible behavior in space for raising security. Second is deterrence. As Grossman 20 explains that successful deterrence in China in space may be reinforced by involving Japan as possesses technical wherewithal in space to compete with China. Second is too expensive. Their own fact evidence indicates that cost is a barrier and there's no fiscal room in the budget. On security, first on the uniqueness, it's outdated, but take 22 explains that it post least by 2 months in account for Ukraine. He finds that even though Putin is defeated in Ukraine, the big picture remains unaltered per the TV evidence we read in case that we can't spend enough comparatively to other countries. On the first scenario of the blame game, one, there's no warrant read with Kaufman, it's power tagged. If other allies rely on the U.S. with per their own Wadsworth evidence, then the U.S. will just leverage our military umbrella and force them to listen. Second, common enemies like North Korea and China means that allies don't lash out and say always have an incentive to stay with Japan. But third, Article 9 was forced on by Japan. Loomis 13 explains and post least by 5 years. Article 9 was far from representing a pacifist ideal, amounts to no more than the victor disarming the defeated. First, and 9 unique to the app because other countries already think the United States imposing their will on Japan, but second, well, it's the only risk of offense for the app. On confidence. Three turns. First is burden sharing. Killinger 20 explains that Japan acquiring strike capability was exemplify U.S. request for allies to share the burden security. The strike capability was incorporated into U.S. military strategies for the regions. Militarization doesn't happen unilaterally. Allies are incentivized to build up their own defense and revitalize their alliances with the U.S. Second is multilateralism. Kaufman 08 explains that Japan, more capable of defending itself, would provide the U.S. with more able partner promoting international security. Japan's increased involvement would bolster American credibility and multilateralism. Third is regionalism. Komori 19 explains that Japan needs offensive capabilities that can take part in joint military action. Thus, Sung 18 finds out alongside leaders, alongside partners, Japan can influence arrangements in favor of the U.S. through Japan's leadership. The region can circumvent a polarizing Sino-American split. The best way to avoid war. On modeling. First, our Loomis evidence from the Loomis evidence I read above still applies. The model was set by imperialism America. Their argument is correlation, not causation. Second, their impact disproves a link. Even if revision happens, country will always remain pacifist because they are still beneficial. While aggressors like China will always act out to be revisionist. It's ridiculous to think that we forget to be peaceful. Third, large-scale military expansion in South China sees norms for aggression. And fourth, they should have to win their C2 on security, or allies will still trust the United States guarantee it won't cause an arms race. On revision spiral. First, there's no revision spiral. Four warns. First is zero political incentive. Year 22 explained that in Japan, those who think that the Constitution restricts government action do not care for substance constitutional change. On the comparison, their Gordon evidence in 1993. There's nothing from this millennium that indicates that the LDP have the incentive to do so. Even if they have the capacity, our evidence proves they don't have the incentive. Second is legal limits. The Sterling 19 explained that rewriting the entire Constitution is going to be accomplished by amending each process individually. The process impeded by limits to the Constitution and process itself. If they have to revise each constitutional amendment one at a time, it's not going to be sweeping change that slides to fascism. Third is a Comito coalition. Bosak 28 explained that if the LDP managed to pass the actual policy implementation was limited, as the committee will invariably have a hand in implementing the legislation that necessarily follow. Fourth, in order to revise their constitution, needs to pass a public referendum. The public won't give up their rights to become authoritarian. Lastly, you can chart it. The LDP would lose power post that because their entire model relies on talking about Article 9. Affirmative takes the wind out of their sails and leaves them with nothing to run on in the future, which means that overall in the future, the LDP goes away, which means nationalism goes away in the long
run. I don't want to dig to your email, so can you just send the evidence, the Lao evidence and the cavalry evidence, please?
Yes. Lao is on aid, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I got it. And then what was the second one?
The cavalry from space.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. They're both sent. Let me know when you get it.
I'll wait unmuted for your what's your evidence, and then we'll begin when I get the evidence.
I just got their email. So you should...
All right, got it now. So let me mute up and then we'll take prep. $137. Our case, their case. Is everybody ready? Let's start the time.
Wait,
Hold up one second. Can you send the doc for when you got our case before?
Yeah, but a lot of it's just gonna be incoherent analytics. So yeah,
That's okay. As long as like the analytics are taglined on the doc, it should be fine.
yeah.
Okay. And then once we get it, we'll let you know, and you'll be good to go.
Yeah.
Wait, did you send?
Let me know when you get it.
Okay. I have not gotten it.
You good?
No. I still have not gotten it.
Send it the right email chain. Yeah, I did. It's the right email chain.
Probably just give it a second.
I have not gotten it.
Have the judges gotten it or we just?
Judges have not gotten it either.
Okay, I got it now.
Cool. Are we good to go?
Yep.
Alrighty. Start the time. Oh, let me get some water. Start the time. Now, on foreign aid, group everything, their turns and their defense. Our link is specific to food and water, not just like infrastructure investment, because our link is not about growth, it's about giving food and water to the people, which means we don't link it to the inequality trend. Plus, we don't link it to any of their authoritarianism and civil war arguments, because governments can't get corrupt using food. But second, our leading evidence finds that no country has ever been worse off after receiving foreign aid, and quickly disproving their argument about their 1% study, because they're studying missing a lot of other factors. Our leading evidence actually accounts for the countries that are receiving foreign aid and finds that no country has ever been worse off. On space. They say militarization is inevitable, but they consider that Japan uniquely sparks an arms race to China because they consider the internal warrant that China doesn't want to see Japan militarize space because they view Japan as an existential threat. Plus, they consider that every other country, every time a new country militarizes space using offensive weapons, it heightens the risk of miscalculation. Even so, China and the US are toning down military operations in space, but if Japan enters space, it would only increase miscalculation. On the norm setting turn, their own evidence concedes this norm setting is happening right now because we see Japan is having a defensive posture in space right now, which enables it to do norm setting. But second, they say deterrence, but deterrence fails in space because you don't know your adversary's capabilities because it's such a new domain. You can't tell what capabilities your opponent has. Hence, you can't deter anyone. So there's no deterrence in space. Takes out the link. On our C3, we're going for a second link about confidence. On their top response about McCaig, they say Ukraine doesn't change the big picture, but they consider the internal warning that Ukraine has hardened our allies against adversaries like China and Russia. Specifically, our Hill 22 evidence finds that Ukraine has convinced these allies that China and Russia are not a bad alternative and they should stick with the United States, and the United States is strong and protect them. On their capping confidence, on their terms of capping confidence, on burden sharing, they perceive that allies lose trust in the United States. They perceive the link, so they'll be less likely to share the burden with the United States and don't lose the economic growth by spending on military spending. Hence, they will not share the burden. Rather, they'll just drift away from the American alliance system. On having an able partner, it still kills trust because they consider that allies really don't want to see Japan militarized because of Japan's checkered past and the fact that Japan hasn't apologized. But second, they consider that Japan cannot deter China. So even if Japan becomes a slightly more able partner, it's nowhere near enough to actually replace the United States. Third, on regionalism, they consider the warranting that allies don't want Japan to militarize. Hence, they're not going to form this regional cooperation, and it's the same thing as our C1, so I'll get to on their case. Let's go to their case. Or at the bottom, they read this turn on revision spiral about how the LDP has nothing to run on. That's preposterous. The LDP has been in power for generations, and the LDP specifically campaigns on hatred against Koreans and Chinese, not about militarizing. On the C1 about regional cooperation, it's not needed. Deterrence happening now. Yamaguchi 22 finds Japan has expanded security with borders that share its concerns about China's assertion turn, affirming Ruins' cooperation in two ways. First, the angry neighbors. ISDP 18 writes that an amendment to Article 9 would ignite protests among neighbors due to historical association of Japan imperialism and wartime aggression, increasing regional tension. Second, limiting diplomacy. ILO 08 writes that Article 9 prohibits forced to settle international disputes. It's been an important role in establishing trust between Japan and the region. Article 9 is important for prevention of conflict. On 6 sides. Mark 21 writes that Japan has a procedure for formal intelligence sharing with the West. At the end of 2016, the US, Japan, and Australia signed a trilateral agreement deepening security cooperation. Second, you can turn it because uniquely joining Five Eyes is bad because of Chinese interference. Stan 20 writes that Five Eyes is going to operate regarding China's displaying solidarity on issues such as Hong Kong. As a result, Japan Five Eyes expansion will cause China to employ diplomatic and economic measures to utilize the weakness of Five Eyes to weaken its cohesion. This always on scope because it affects all Five Eyes operations, not just those related to China. And they can give you a specific warning as to how Five Eyes necessarily stops China's rise. Don't give you one in the back half. On security guarantees, A.R. Reinhardt evidence from Friday finds that Southeast Asian trust in the United States is at an all-time high, verified by the lack of aggression in the status quo. And for the last few years, that China is too scared to attack because of the United States. You need to say the quo is working. Second, their Panton evidence is egregiously miscut. It does not say the U.S. will refocus, just that some Japanese are wary of American commitment. They power tag their evidence. Do not vote in this argument. It's horrible evidentiary ethics. At the end of the day, we still kill relations in two ways. First, adversary backlash. 2017, the Japanese normalization process angers China enough. The Chinese use these economic ties with the U.S. to exert influence on American policymakers to weaken its commitments to the nation. Second is entrapment. That no weight rights and the opposite posture will exacerbate the deter versus restraint dilemma for Washington. The United States could distance itself to mitigate the risk of entrapment, heighten Tokyo's fear of abandonment, and pull the two allies apart. On UNSC, China would veto it because Harris 14 finds that the power's permanent membership would afford Tokyo our anathema to Beijing's interest as a permanent member. China wields a veto over proposals to alter its composition. On the Middle East, the whole evidence is egregiously miscut. When it talks about finding new partners, it's isolating strictly for Israel. If anything, this destroys diplomacy with nations like Iran, who see Israel as a threat. Second, you can turn it because of Chinese drawn. Shiron 16 writes down opposite Japan can provoke mass retaliation by hawks in Beijing. Everyone 16 concludes that competition over energy seems like the greatest source of China or Japanese competition in the Middle East, and a source of conflict at the moment seems unlikely because the rivalry extends there. However, this outweighs because obviously every power that's ever gotten involved in proxy wars in the Middle East have been drawn in for generations. So obviously it's a longer war than they talk about. Hence, what that?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Jay, do you want to run prep before or after cross?
Before.
Okay. We'll run some prep starting now.
That was
Stop prep.
50 seconds. We're stopping prep at. Can you send the Reinhardt evidence that you read on security guarantees?
It's on the app doc. I can just send it right now, or neg doc. I can send it right now.
Yeah, it'd be good if you sent it.
Kunal, he loves sending emails, is insisting on sending it. So
Once we get it, we'll resume prepping.
The evidence is really, really good, by the way. I'm just saying.
All right. All right.
okay, you good for cross?
We're probably gonna run more
We're gonna
prep
run
after
more
we get
prep
it.
after we get evidence.
I have not gotten it, but I'll let you know when I get it. Okay, I just got it.
Okay.
So
we'll resume prep
starting
right
now.
now.
Okay, 210 used in total.
All right.
All right, Vaibhav. Can I have the first question?
Yeah, for sure.
Excellent. I'll start timing my first word. Okay, so let's talk about your argument about security guarantees.
Yeah.
You say that Japan is unable to deter China.
Yeah.
Is the United States deterring China right now?
Yeah, that's the Reinhardt uniqueness. No war's been happening for generations. Yeah.
Okay. Number one, Jay will probably respond to the Reinhardt evidence later. But number two, if that's true, why is China expanding in the South China Sea in the status quo?
They're doing minor provocations, but they know that if they do anything like ridiculous, ludicrous, like for example, right? They really want to take Taiwan. They want Taiwan really bad, right? If you watch Chinese state media, they love Taiwan, they want Taiwan back, etc. But they won't do it because the United States is right there. Like Uncle Sam's there, we got them, right? So the point being is that insofar as the United States is there, like China is like the only risk of conflict in Asia is weakening the position of the United States, which is like frankly the most important argument. Like, yeah.
Okay, because I just want to clarify something real quick. Article 9 says that Japan can't respond unless they are attacked, right? So in what world where Japan doesn't have offensive capabilities in the status quo would China purposely provoke Japan and say,
it's not about provoking Japan necessarily. It's about China doing anything provocative in the region as a consequence of Article 9. They get pissed off, or as a consequence of our link that Article 9 or affirming per our link, which you've conceded, you only read this adds to our link, right? Article 9 has like weakens the trust in the American alliance system to the point where other countries, i.e. China, don't believe the United States in there, and the United States looks weaker. Hence, they're more willing to be provocative. And even if the United States isn't as weak as allies and adversaries perceive it to be, if the United States is less like forceful in its response, or China perceives it to be less I don't know, have less fortitude, I guess, China is going to attack. It'd be a long war. All right, I'll take it.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the let's talk about your argument pertaining to UNSC, right?
Sure.
So what has happened the last 5 times Japan has tried to join the UNSC or permanent membership? And similar, and Japan and India, honestly, similar story.
I don't know specifically about India because that's not the topic, but Japan, they don't get on because of Article 9.
I know about India because I don't know, I'm not gonna go into why, but I know about India, but like China's vetoed the permanent membership each time because China hates these 2 countries. So
Right.
why? Because we, for some reason, like if Japan like gets rid of Article 9, why does that change China's incentive calculus? And
Right.
allow
I understand you only read one response to UNSC and rebuttal, but Jay will frontline it later.
It's the truest response. Like, come on now.
Yeah, we'll frontline it. Your evidence is from 2015. What do you mean you can't frontline it? Of course we can frontline it. You'll hear the front lines later. I'm not sure what that question is.
I see that it's true. Like it's true.
Your argument about space.
Wait, Ryan, just admit it's true. Just like admit it.
It's not true. Jay will frontline it. And now we're out of cross anyway, so whatever.
Okay, 7 seconds.
Are you good to
go? F weighing neck. Everyone did? At stand, our argument about UNSC, Article 9 precludes Japan from joining the UNSC because members are skeptical of Japan's ability to meet requirements. Japan joining the STS would enhance the Council's ability as greater influence, which would let Japan counter numerous threats like climate change, East Asian disease, and nuclear problems, all of which cause extinction, which is conceded. Their only response is China veto. 2 issues. 1, our MOFA evidence contextualizes that there's huge support for Japan's permanent membership, assuming they can overcome the restraint Article 9 poses, which stops the vetoes. Wilson 99 confirms China might forego its veto of 2/3 of the UN voted with Japan in second. They have conceded the Panton spike at the bottom, that even if they don't get on the permanent council, they get massive more amounts of diplomatic influence inside of the UN, which is still enough to solve our impasse, which is conceded. So even if China vetoes, it doesn't matter because Japan still gets more influence, which solves all the threats. At that point, UNSC outweighs security guarantees for 4 reasons. 1, it's a link in the United States. The UNSC can solve back for all the conflicts that are caused by Chinese, hijacking like all the like arms races around the world. 2nd, Lincoln, if a Western democracy, so Western democratic ally joins the council, shifts the council power in favor of the West and against China, which saves the security guarantee. 3rd, on Lincoln, it says an alternative to American hegemony and security guarantees. The UN can reassure everybody that they're safe now, which means no one freaks out and causes an arm race. And 4th, on uniqueness, Japan literally isn't on the council right now, and they have conceded the question that U.S. hedge will inevitably decline because spending costs are way too high in the long term, which means no matter what, we outweigh on uniqueness. Let's handle the turns on our case. On the turns at the top on C1, group them. First, they've conceded our link from Sugawa that Japan would apologize, which means no neighbors freak out and no one gets mad about limited diplomacy, but unlimited diplomacy, just like they can literally do diplomacy and hard power. Every country has a military and also does diplomacy. This is ridiculous. On the turn on Five Eyes is anti-China right now, which means that it doesn't matter because they should already be interfering. And there's also definitely no impact because they don't read one. They also say no one on our impact. On the turns on security guarantees. First on the Reinhardt evidence, their evidence cites a study pre-Ukraine, which means it doesn't post their evidence plans that Ukraine actually didn't reassure allies per McTague. And second, their evidence says at max 41% of our allies support US, which still is enough. On the China retail turn, they should have done in the past. America's trying to entrap or contain China, and on entrapment, if anything, US pulls out Japan, which means there's less entrapment. On Middle East, first, they've conceded Japan apologizes. Second, war is inevitable per the uniqueness at the top on RC1. And third, China always has incentives to get energy in the Middle East. Go to their case. On Star Wars, extend the fact that their evidence on concede Japan will never militarize space because it's way too expensive, which means you can't vote for it. It's literally conceded in that to their case. On security guarantees, extend the fact that on their first link that there are bigger threats like China and North Korea, which means even if our allies aren't fully aware or fully confident in the United States, they still stay with us because they're bigger threats like China and North Korea who are irrational with it. Although it's right on their first link, they've conceded the implication that also applies to their second link. On C1 about aid, you can extend the civil war turn that aid function like leads to civil wars. They say it's only food and water, but no, their own evidence isolates infrastructure. They say it's never worked in the past. That's all countries are specific and causes some civil wars, which cause pandemics and extinction.
Okay. Can we see the Wilson evidence you read as a front line, please?
Yep.
And what were the four? Can you just, did you read out Wang Max for your argument?
I remember them. The first was Lincoln, the UNSC can solve back for all the conflict because they interfere in countries and do diplomacy. Second, Lincoln, it shifts power towards the West because Japan is a democracy and shifts power towards the West, which solves China and hedge and boosts American hedge. Third, Lincoln, it works as an alternative to American hedge and security guarantees because the UN can reassure everyone. Fourth, uniqueness, Japan isn't on the council right now, but you've conceded the question that American hegemony will never be decline in the long term because the management costs are way too high per the evidence that we read in case, which means we have the only risk of solvency.
It's also sent.
Wonderful. All right. Well, we have a minute 23 of prep. We'll use it now.
That's your prep, right?
Yeah. Starting on our case, weighing their case. Everyone good? All right, time starts now. Round ended after Jay just conceded foreign aid. The only thing he extends on foreign aid is a civil war turn. If you look at your flow, did you get a link for this civil war turn? No, he just asserts that foreign aid leads to civil wars. Not an author is extended or a link, at which point there is no link defense. Hang is conceded, and he tells you that despite Japan doing lots of foreign aid right now, Article 9 revision means that Japan no longer has to rely on soft power, meaning that it instead shifts to hard power and shifts away from foreign aid, which is really key because our impact evidence tells you that Japan's foreign aid contributions lift millions out of poverty. A few pieces that this outweighs. First, the Hang evidence kills their impact or kills their UNSC scenario because it literally says Japan shifts away from soft power because now it has the incentive to do hard power instead. A, this is conceded, and B, it kills UNSC because Japan no longer has the incentive to do diplomacy because now it has a militaristic alternative. B, because Japan stops doing all these foreign aid missions, it means that countries around the globe trust Japan less because it used to be such a big foreign aid donor. Now they turn resentful of Japan for not helping their people. C, it independently outweighs because their impacts about the UN are really nebulous. We don't actually know what it terminalizes to, whereas you know for a fact that when Japan does foreign aid, it lifts millions out of poverty. At which point it's conceded. There's no defense. There's three pieces of weighing. Vaibhav will make this very easy to put on in his final. On their case, the turn at the top of their case is really mishandled. Vibov tells you that Japanese neighbors would be really angered by Japanese militarization following Article 9. All they say is that Japan will apologize. A, there's no evidence that Japan actually wants to apologize. And B, Vibov makes it comparative that the LDP is really nationalist and hasn't apologized and literally come out and denied comfort women ever happened, meaning that our link still holds true that when you rise Article 9, Japanese neighbors get really angered and turn away from diplomacy, which is supercharged by our Reinhardt evidence, which tells you that or our Yamaguchi evidence, which tells you that there's a lot of regional cooperation right now. A, this is a better link to their UNSC argument because if there's no regional cooperation, it means that Japan has no support of actually getting into the UNSC. And B, regional cooperation is better at solving conflicts than the UNSC because we don't actually know what the UNSC has ever done, whereas regional cooperation has deterred China for decades in East Asia. On this UNSC argument, specifically on the China veto stuff, they can see that China will always have the incentive to veto. So even if there's a majority, insofar as China will have the incentive, the veto will still go through. India had a majority too, and China still vetoed it. It didn't matter. At which point, group all of the weighing, or I guess let's line by line the weighing. They say the UNSC solves conflicts, not an internal link was extended as to which conflicts or how it solves them. Second, they say that it shifts counsel in favor of the West. If Japan gets less diplomatic per both of the links that both of the offensive links that I extend, Japan doesn't get more doesn't shift towards the West. They say the UN will reassure everyone. A, they don't contextualize what this reassurance looks like, and B, if Japan gets less diplomatic, it doesn't care about reassuring people. Fourth, they say uniqueness US hedge declines. Cool, we didn't go for a US hedge argument. So vote on foreign aid because it independently lifts millions out of people and links into their UNSC argument, or vote on angering neighbors because it also links into their UNSC argument.
Okay, we have 50 seconds of prep. We're going to use that right now.
Good. Do you want to skip Grand?
No, we'll use Grand. I think Grand Cross is very important.
Really?
I think our Grand Cross and that Apple Valley round is the pinnacle of Grand Cross. Wouldn't you agree? All right, you guys can take the first question.
Well, we're going to use prep before cross.
Oh, okay. How much do you have?
50.
Okay, I'll just fill up my water in the meantime.
Like, y'all don't need to wait for Vibov to get back to start Grand.
Yeah, those are prep. Good for Grand Cross.
Let's do some cross-examinations, yeah?
Okay.
You guys ready for the most fun part of the debate?
Yeah.
All right, you can do the first question.
Okay. Let's talk about the idea that when a country gets a military, they're less likely to do diplomacy.
Let's talk about the idea that this was conceded.
Here's the thing. The reason why it's not is because you read a turn on our case about limiting diplomacy. The second turn, here, wait, Bob, this is really important. The second turn you read on our case, I make the front line that every single country around the world has a military and still does diplomacy, which definitely applies to your aid argument because it's the same.
Jay, you're smirking. You're smirking because you know it was conceded. We'd literally be better off. I'll explain.
Places. That's not my fault. It was a bad strategic decision to go for aid, in my opinion, at least.
What Vibov is trying to say. All right. What we're going to tell you is that, yes, every country does diplomacy and military because diplomacy is literally required for a nation to exist. Like, you can't just you can't be like you can't be the Sentinel Island and just not do diplomacy.
Yeah, even North Korea does diplomacy.
Even North Korea does diplomacy. Our point is that diplomacy is still scalar insofar as Japan does less diplomacy and less countries support it. It means it short circuits your argument about the UN.
I.e., Russia still does diplomacy.
The reason it doesn't is because if we're going into this war debate, let's look at what's happening in the world. All 5 countries on the UNSC right now have a military. They have the biggest militaries in the world, and they're still on the UNSC. The warranting is conceded that you have to do both.
None of those countries are as hated as Japan is by their regional members. Plus, your warrant to your front line is that they get 2/3 support from the rest of the countries which definitionally does not happen if other countries have hate Japan so much. Okay,
Okay, but
35 conceded
I mean-
argument. I'll take a question.
yeah, you can have a question.
I'll take a question. So let's talk about your argument pertaining to the UNSC. You make this weighing argument that it can help limit Chinese hedge. Why would China not veto any proposal that would destroy its hegemony?
We probably won't go for the link that Japan joins the council. We'll go for this Panton evidence, which was conceded in 2 speeches now, that Japan still gets way more influence in all mandates because countries believe in them and believe they're more powerful, which means it achieves the same effect as in cases in my summary. Can I have a question?
I don't know. I'll have to think about letting you have a question. You can.
Okay, let's talk about aid.
Yeah.
Does China give a lot of, or no, better question. Does
Dude, you're spending more time in Grand Cross talking about the argument than you did in summary. Like, there's got to be something up with that.
Okay, calm down, buddy. Well, let's just ask a question.
I mean, I'm comparative to our Apple Valley round. This is a lot calmer, don't you think?
that's fair. Does India give a lot of aid?
Yeah, because it wants to get on the Security Council, and India is like, for example, like COVAX, in like Modi's, it's like pillar of his diplomacy that he wants to establish influence in Africa and compete with China. So there's a completely different reason why India has a ton of aid, and because they want to export their human capital elsewhere in the globe. So yeah.
That's prep.
Yeah.
Ryan, do speech on your computer because my computer's like right about to die.
Yeah, I will. So yeah, it's gonna start on the turn on RC1 that they go for. And then it'll also be applying the analysis that Jay does on the second turn, because the links are the same on here in aid. So then I'll transition to aid then, and then I'll come back to our scenario about UNSC.
Can you signpost pretty please?
Yes, I will. Okay. Start on RC1 about angering neighbors. They say they read this turn about angering neighbors. Doesn't matter. The Sugawa evidence indicates that they will apologize because they don't want to start an arms race. Japan isn't stupid. They don't want to cause regional instability. Furthermore, they said the LP is nationalist. Does not matter. We said they still apologize in the first place because they don't want to start conflict. Then on the second turn, they concede Jay's frontline that countries all around the world still have incentive to do diplomacy and have the military, which means Japan still always has the incentive to go and give out aid in the first place, which is terminal defense on their link. It doesn't matter if we read it at a different place. If they extend the same link twice and we responded in one area of the flow instead of the other, all of you say you are tech over truth. This is an easy piece of terminal defense, cold conceded. Furthermore, go to aid. First of all, in Grand Cross, Bob says that countries want to give aid to get onto the UNSC. So obviously, Japan will still give aid anyway. So that's just a free concession that is terminal defense on their case. But second of all, you can still cross by the fact that diplomacy and military are still going to be used conventionally. Third of all, there's no warranting in case whatsoever on how aid lifts people out of poverty. They just say infrastructure investment is good. Check the case doc that they read in first constructive. None of it actually says what they said. In second constructive, none of it says what they said. It says there's no internal link extension on Addison whatsoever. With that in mind, every single country is always going to do aid. So let's get to UNSC. It's the most important argument in the round. Our argument is very simple. We say that Japan wants to join the UNSC in the status quo, but can't because of Article 9, because obviously Article 9 precludes them from joining the UNSC because people don't believe that Japan is able to do things like PKOs and peacekeeping missions, etc. But when Japan joins, because they revise Article 9, people believe that they can. And also the Panton evidence conceded, even if Japan doesn't join Article 9 in the first place because of China veto, they still can see the Panton evidence that indicates that they gain way more soft power in the first place because on that countries believe them and they're more credible in the first place. We say that it links into extinction because they're able to solve more cooperation like climate change, East Asian disease, and prolif. Here's the weighing. It's very simple. We say first it links into extinction because hegemonic rise leads to transition wars, which leads to clinging, where the United States lashed out against China. They say they're not going for security guarantees. That's fine. We still control the link into security guarantees, which means that the United States is going to start a war with China and transition wars. Miscalculation happens and nuclear weapons get used to cause extinction, which outweighs aid. Second of all, obviously, if there's more issues like climate change and pandemic, countries are going to turn inward and not expand outward, decreases aid flows in the first place. So also, they said we tell you that the United States Security Council is a way to give out aid in the first place. We're linking into the argument on so many levels. At the end of the day, we're reading terminal defense on their link in a different place on the flow. It's still terminal defense.
Co-op aid and then weighing all throughout. On the weighing will functionally be terminal defense as well. All right. Let's start the time. Ryan, I see you timing. All right. Let's start the time now. Ryan's final focus sounded a hell of a lot different than Jay's summary. The reason is he realized Jay screwed up on the turn, and it's going to lose them TOC octafinals. extend our turn that they have conceded that if Japan were to militarize it, anger all of its regional neighbors, preventing any sort of regional cooperation from taking place because Japan has repeatedly denied the atrocities committed during World War II and refused to apologize. But I want to just say that there's Sugawa evidence says Japan will apologize. If this is the hill they're willing to die on, they're going to lose on it. Look at the evidence. It does not say that. This evidence is egregiously miscut. It was cut by Sully Merkma. That should tell you enough. Even then, they say that LDP being nationalist doesn't change it. The LDP's platform is hatred of Koreans and Chinese. This front line was again dropped. At that point, this kills regional co-op. Two pieces of conceded weighing. First, they have conceded that no regional cooperation means that Japan doesn't have the holistic support to get on the UN Security Council, taking out their link terminally. Because if Japan can't get on the UN Security Council, they can't get their sovereignty. They don't have offense. Plus, Japan doesn't have more influence if countries hate them. Secondly, they have conceded that regional cooperation is far more effective at solving conflict than the UNSC per the conceded Yamaguchi evidence. It indicates that regional cooperation has deterred China for decades and generations, but regional cooperation, they can't give you a single example of the UNSC preventing conflict. This comparative way that is 100% conceded. Draw the line, vote right here. Even then, all the weighings about how their argument is very good. They have conceded that the internal link to their UNSC argument is effective diplomacy getting Japan on the UNSC, which we will win on our case about foreign aid. On foreign aid, everything Ryan says is brand new, so I'm not going to humor it by giving it a response and second final focus. Even then, you can extend our argument about how Japan develops a military option. It becomes far more militaristic and less likely to do aid, which is crucial because Japan is the fourth largest aid donor globally, and their hang evidence, which is weighing, is dropped, saying that if Japan were to ship away from foreign aid, it would kill its diplomatic, and if no incentive to do diplomatic options, A, kills the support to get on the UN Security Council, B, prevents it from solving conflict on the regional level, which they consider to be significantly more effective than UNSC. At that point, there's no way to vote for my opponent's arguments. Do not pull the trigger for them. They say every other country does aid. No, it's clearly scalar. Japan is the fourth largest aid donor, and they say every other country does diplomacy. No, Russia does diplomacy, but the United States has far more diplomacy than Russia. It's clearly scalar. The diplomacy is a scalar. In fact, we're winning so many links into the argument. Thus, engage.
Great,
Good written. Thank you for judging.
All right, I think I was the last one to submit. So everyone, right. Okay, cool. Great job to both teams. Really good round. The final decision was a 3-0 for the neg. So I can go first. I think that this round is really, really hard to evaluate, mostly because I'm getting 3 independent links into soft power, and there's no weighing between them. So essentially, like the AF's whole argument, right, is that like it's kind of like labeled as UNSC, but at the end, like it has nothing to do with UNSC. It's pretty much just a diplomacy argument. And they're saying like, they're going to increase Japan's soft power. And all the weighing that you're reading on it is just that diplomacy is good and it prevents extinction. But all the neg is doing is like trying to link in. So the weighing that I need to see is why your UNSC argument about diplomacy has more diplomacy than their arguments. And neither team does that really. So I'm kind of just left with 3 independent links into soft power. And I'm kind of left to like evaluate which one I think is a better link. And I think that the neg's argument on like angering neighbors is a more direct link into soft power, and along with the foreign aid argument, because the evidence that they give for foreign aid like is pretty clear that like they would trade off with soft power when they have the military. And I also think that the thing about like angering neighbors is also like a pretty direct link into diplomacy. So I just think that they're more clear, whereas the UNSC argument is a little bit like vague in how it correlates directly with diplomacy. But in general, I would say that both teams need to weigh better, because like I don't think that there's any weighing as to which link is the best. But that's kind of how I vote. So yeah.
Cool. I can go next. I actually think this round was like kind of easy, to be honest. I buy this turn on angering neighbors, right? I think this then controls the link into destroying whatever marginal uptick in like UN popularity that the app is winning. I think it's super easy actually to resolve the question of like which team is more effective at resolving conflicts, be it like an increase in Japan's support in the UN or avoiding the backlash arc, because there's like Yamaguchi evidence does like a pretty solid enough comparison on like the terminal impact of resolving conflicts, and I think it's like cold conceded. So I just like insta on my ballot there.
Yeah, I pretty much saw the round similar to Dylan. And like I guess I want to add that I could have signed my ballot in the same place. I agree with Lindbrook that the evidence on whether or not Japan will apologize is like not enough to win my ballot on that. And then like I could have voted on the turn and I could have voted on aid. And yeah, good job.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for judging the round.
Thank you.